You're listening to
Catholic Sprouts,
the daily podcast for Catholic kids that strives to plant seeds of faith. Hey there, Sprouts. Today is Tuesday, March 12th, 2019. This week on the Catholic Sprouts podcast, we are endeavoring to learn more about Jesus and grow closer to Him through understanding Him this Lent. This week, we are talking about the birth and the early years of Jesus Christ. Yesterday, we discussed why God became man, and we learned that through Him becoming human, we have such a powerful teacher, someone that came and taught us through example. Today, we are going to talk about the incarnation, the actual moment when God became man. So that is the big word you were learning today, incarnation. Why don't you take a moment and practice saying it? Incarnation. The incarnation is one of the most beautiful, mysterious happenings that we can point to in our faith. The moment when God, who is infinite and powerful, when He chose to become human. And as we all know, humans are weak. We can sin. We can also be hurt or sick. God gave up all of that infinite power to become one of His creatures. He came down to our level. Now, let's talk about what this really means. So God is eternal. It means there's no end, there's no beginning, there's no end to God. But He chose to come into human history. And we know human beings are born at a certain point and they die at a certain point. Sure, we have a spiritual element, but only through the grace of God can we long to have eternal life with God in heaven. On this life, in this world, we are not eternal. We have a beginning and an end. It seems completely crazy, in fact, that God would give up all of His power and glory to become a human being. And of course, we know how it ends. Not only did He give up all of His power and glory to become a human being, He became not the king of the world, which is a huge step below God. He became a tiny, helpless infant who couldn't even be born in a hotel. He had to be born in the stable out back. So, why would God do this? Well, here's what I want you to remember, my friends. The incarnation, the moment when God became man, is an extreme act of love. An extreme act of love, perhaps the most extreme, the most crazy act of love ever. Because God chose weakness. He chose pain and loss out of love, knowing that it was best for us. He chose pain, weakness, and loss, knowing it was best for us. And Sprouts, here is my challenge for you today. I want you to remember that God chose pain, weakness, and loss, knowing it was best for us. That is the example of love that we have from God. And that is what we are called to do for our brothers and sisters. How can I choose less glory and honor out of love for someone else? How can I choose to be looked upon as weaker? Or how can I choose a little bit of pain out of love for another person? Maybe that little bit of pain is that, I don't get ice cream because there's only enough for 2 people and I'll let them have it and I won't. Maybe loss is, I will let them play with my Legos even though I know there's a good chance they'll lose one. These are small things compared to what God gave up through the incarnation, and yet he sees these sacrifices. He knows it's love, and he sees them as valuable. So just think about that. How can I choose pain, loss, and weakness out of love for another person, just as God did in the incarnation?
That's it for Catholic Sprouts today. We'll be back tomorrow, but until then, continue to grow in your faith and truly sprout into the beautiful creation that God intended you to be. One final word to the grown-ups. Thank you so much for listening to the Catholic Sprouts podcast. I would like to invite you to join a special Facebook group just for those that listen to the Catholic Sprouts podcast. We will use this group to connect, to share resources around that week's theme, and simply celebrate raising future saints. To find the direct link to the Facebook group, simply check the notes for this podcast episode.